Blood stained the sidewalk as 8-year-old Sarah Martinez knelt beside the whimpering German Shepherd, her worn sneakers scraping against the rough concrete. Her small hands trembled as she pressed her only jacket, a threadbare hand-me-down, from the church donation box against the dog's injured leg, whispering words of comfort, even as tears streamed down her cheeks. She didn't notice the tall man in the expensive suit who had stopped his Mercedes at the corner, watching her every move with intense interest. From her tiny apartment above Joe's Discount Furniture, Sarah could see the towers of St. Michael's Hospital rising into the morning sky, never imagining that her act of kindness would soon connect these two very different worlds. While her mother worked double shifts as a cleaning lady to afford Sarah's asthma medication, fate was already weaving an extraordinary tapestry of coincidence and compassion that would change their lives forever. Will Sarah's pure heart lead to the miracle her family desperately needs? If this story touches your heart, please subscribe to Heart and Soul Stories for more tales of hope, kindness, and life-changing moments that remind us of the magic that surrounds us every day. Sarah sat in the worn plastic chair of St. Michael's Hospital's waiting room, her legs swinging back and forth as she clutched her inhaler. The familiar antiseptic smell made her nose wrinkle, but she didn't mind, not when she could see the kind-faced nurses hurrying past, their colorful scrubs brightening the otherwise stark hallways. Her mother Maria sat beside her, dark circles under her eyes betraying another sleepless night of overtime work. "Martinez?" the nurse called, her voice echoing through the crowded waiting area. Sarah grabbed her mother's hand as they made their way to the examination room, passing a tall man in an expensive suit who seemed oddly familiar. He stood near the nurse's station, his presence commanding attention even as he spoke in hushed tones with the hospital staff. Dr. Williams' examination was quick but thorough, his frown deepening as he listened to Sarah's breathing. "The current medication isn't controlling the symptoms as well as we'd hoped," he said, directing his words to Maria. "There's a newer treatment available, but..." He hesitated, glancing at the prescription pad in his hand. Maria's shoulders tensed. She knew that hesitation, had heard it too many times before. "How much?" she asked quietly, trying to keep her voice steady for Sarah's sake. As Dr. Williams quoted the price, Maria's heart sank. Even with her 2 cleaning jobs, even with the extra shifts she'd been picking up at the office building downtown, the cost was far beyond their means. Sarah watched her mother's face carefully, recognizing the look she got whenever money was discussed. On their way out, they passed the nurse's station again. The man in the suit was still there, now engaged in what appeared to be an intense discussion with several board members. Sarah overheard fragments of their conversation, something about budget cuts and the children's ward. "We can't justify the expense," one of the board members was saying, his voice carrying despite his attempt at discretion. "The numbers don't support..." "The numbers," the tall man interrupted, his voice quiet but firm, "don't tell the whole story." He stopped abruptly as Sarah and her mother passed by, his eyes following them with an unreadable expression. Maria hurried Sarah along, but not before they both caught the end of the exchange. "Dr. Chen, we understand your position, but outside the hospital," Sarah tugged on her mother's sleeve. "Mama, is everything okay? Will I get the new medicine?" Maria forced a smile, squeezing her daughter's hand. "We'll figure something out, mi amor. We always do." But as they walked toward the bus stop, her mind was already calculating bills, hours, and possibilities, searching for a solution that seemed increasingly out of reach. Behind them, Dr. James. Chen watched from his office window, his hand resting thoughtfully on a folder marked Children's Ward Renovation Project. On his desk, a framed photograph showed a young girl with a bright smile, her hospital gown decorated with hand-drawn flowers. He picked up his phone, pressing a single button. "Nancy, could you pull the personnel files for our cleaning service contractor and get me everything you can on their hiring practices?" "Yes, all of it. I think it's time we made some changes around here." Maria's back ached as she scrubbed the last office floor of her night shift, the fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows across the empty cubicles. Her phone showed 2:47 a.m., just enough time to catch the last bus home if she hurried. The extra shifts were killing her, but Sarah's wheezing had gotten worse last night, and the sound of her daughter's labored breathing haunted her every waking moment. Down on Cherry Street, passing the spot where Sarah had helped the injured dog days ago, Maria noticed a figure huddled in the doorway of the abandoned pharmacy. It was the homeless veteran she'd seen around the neighborhood, and beside him lay the German shepherd Sarah had helped, its leg now carefully bandaged. "Evening, ma'am," he called out softly, noticing her glance. His voice carried the kind of dignity that hardship hadn't managed to strip away. "Name's Michael, your little girl. She's the one who helped Rex here, isn't she?" Maria nodded, clutching her purse closer out of habit, though something in Michael's eyes told her she had nothing to fear. "Sarah? She's been worried about him. She's got a heart of gold, your girl." Michael gestured to Rex's leg. "Clinic down on 4th Street helped us out. Said someone called ahead, paid for everything. Anonymous donor." He shrugged, scratching behind Rex's ears. World still got some angels in it. The mention of medical care made Maria's throat tight. She thought of the prescription they couldn't fill, of Sarah's increasing dependence on her rescue inhaler. "Yes," she managed. "Angels. You know," Michael said, his voice careful, "I used to work security before." He gestured vaguely at his circumstances. "Still keep my ear to the ground? Word is St. Michael's is hiring. Internal cleaning staff. Better benefits than the contractor companies." He paused. "Better health insurance, too." Maria's heart skipped. "How do you—" "Like I said, I keep my ear to the ground." He smiled, reaching into a worn backpack and pulling out a slightly crumpled flyer. "They're doing interviews tomorrow. Thought of your girl when I saw it." As Maria took the flyer, her hands trembling slightly, she didn't notice the expensive Mercedes parked half a block away, or Dr. Chen watching the exchange with quiet satisfaction. The next morning, Sarah insisted on visiting Rex before school. They found Michael and the dog in the same spot, Sarah immediately dropping to her knees beside Rex while pulling out half of her breakfast sandwich from her backpack. "Saved this for him," she explained, breaking it into small pieces. Her wheezing was worse in the morning cold, but her smile never faltered as Rex gently took the offerings from her small hand. Michael watched the interaction with knowing eyes, noting how Maria hovered protectively nearby, her work uniform already, on for her morning shift. "You know," he said casually, "Rex here was a therapy dog before I got him. Used to visit kids in hospitals." His eyes met Maria's. "Still remembers all his training." Sarah's eyes lit up. "Really? He helps sick people feel better?" "That's right. Sometimes the best medicine isn't medicine at all." Michael's words seemed directed as much at Maria as at Sarah. "Sometimes it's just having someone believe in you." Maria clutched the hiring flyer in her pocket, thinking of the interview scheduled for that afternoon. She'd called in sick to her regular job, the first time in 3 years. It was a risk, but watching Sarah with Rex, seeing the color in her cheeks and hearing the joy in her voice despite the wheeze in her chest, she knew she had to take it. Later that day, as Maria walked into St. Michael's Hospital for her interview, she passed Dr. Chen in the hallway. He nodded politely, giving no indication that he'd orchestrated everything, from the clinic visit for Rex to the perfectly timed job opening. In his office, the photograph of his sister smiled down at him as he reviewed Maria's application, already knowing exactly where she would fit in his plans to save not just the children's ward, but the children themselves. "Sometimes," he murmured. To the photograph, "The best way to honor a memory is to create new ones." He turned to his computer, typing out an email to the board about his new initiative for integrating therapy dogs into the children's ward program. The subject line read, simply, "Project Rex, a new approach to healing." The interview room felt impossibly large to Maria, its wide windows overlooking the same city streets she'd spent years cleaning, her hands, rough from years of harsh cleaning chemicals, twisted nervously in her lap as she waited. The position they'd described seemed too good to be true. Full benefits, regular hours, and nearly double her current salary. Her mother's voice echoed in her head. Cuando algo parece demasiado bueno para ser verdad, probablemente lo es. When something seems too good to be true, it probably is. The door opened and Maria's heart nearly stopped. Instead of the HR representative she'd expected, in walked the man she'd seen so often in the hospital halls, Dr. Chen himself, carrying a familiar folder. "Mrs. Martinez," he said warmly, settling into the chair across from her, "thank you for coming in today. I've been looking forward to meeting you properly." Maria straightened in her chair, years of dealing with employers kicking in. I thought this was a cleaning staff position?" "It is." Dr. Chen opened the folder, revealing what appeared to be surveillance photos. Sarah helping Rex, Maria working her late shift, their daily bus rides to the hospital. But it's also something more. Maria's blood ran cold. "You've been watching us?" "Observing," he corrected gently. "There's a difference. I needed to be sure." "Sure of what?" Maria's voice hardened, her protective instincts flaring. Dr. Chen leaned back, his expression softening. "Sure that you were exactly who we need. Mrs. Martinez, I'm offering you a position as head of our new environmental services team. Full benefits, including comprehensive health coverage for you and Sarah. Effective immediately." Maria's heart skipped at the mention of health coverage, but her suspicion remained. "Why me?" "Because you understand what's really at stake here." He pulled out another photograph, this one personal, showing a young girl in a hospital bed. "This was my sister, Lisa. She died in a hospital much like this one, where budget cuts had eliminated programs that might have saved her life." His voice carried an old pain. "I've watched you and your daughter. I've seen how you fight for her, how she fights for others. That's what this hospital needs." The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken implications. Finally, Maria found her voice. "What's the catch?" "No catch, but there is a larger purpose." Dr. Chen handed her another document, plans for the children's ward renovation. "The board wants to shut it down, redirect funds to more profitable departments. I need allies who understand why we can't let that happen. People who see patients as people, not numbers." Sarah's wheezing echoed in Maria's memory, along with the sight of her daughter kneeling beside an injured dog, giving away her only jacket. "And if I say no, then you walk out of here with my respect and best wishes." Dr. Chen's smile was genuine, but somehow I don't think you will. Maria studied the contract before her, the salary figure making her dizzy. With this, she could afford Sarah's new medication, maybe even save for her college fund. But more than that, she could be part of something that mattered. "There will be resistance," Dr. Chen warned. "The board, certain staff members, not everyone believes in what we're trying to do here." Maria thought of Sarah's determination to help Rex despite having so little to give. She thought of Michael, who'd lost everything, but still found ways to help others. She thought of all the children like her daughter, fighting battles too big for their small shoulders. "When do I start?" Dr. Chen's smile broadened. "Tomorrow. And Mrs. Martinez, thank you for helping save that dog." Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness reveal exactly who people are. As Maria left the office, contract signed and employee badge in hand, she felt a mix of hope and trepidation. Behind her, Dr. Chen made a phone call. "Nancy, begin phase 2 and contact that veteran, Michael. Tell him we'd like to discuss our new therapy dog program." In her backpack, Sarah's inhaler was running low, its counter showing just 12 doses remaining. But for the first time in years, Maria felt something. Stronger than fear, she felt purpose. Maria's new hospital badge felt heavy against her chest as she walked through St. Michael's employee entrance for the first time. The morning sun cast long shadows through the glass doors, and the familiar antiseptic smell now carried a different weight. This was no longer just the place where she brought Sarah for treatment. This was her domain to protect. "Mrs. Martinez," Dr. Chen's assistant, Nancy, hurried toward her, tablet in hand. "Let me show you to your office." Office! The word alone made Maria's head spin. Just last week she'd been cleaning them. Now she had one of her own, albeit small, with a desk and a window overlooking the children's playground below. A framed certification on the wall declared her Environmental Services Director. "Your team will be here at 8, Nancy explained, handing her a stack of files. "Dr. Chen wants you to focus on the children's ward first. He's scheduled a board meeting for next week. And," she hesitated, lowering her voice, "we need to show results." Maria understood the unspoken message. Prove we made the right choice. Prove you belong here. The morning rushed by in a blur of introductions and orientations. Her new team, mostly familiar faces from her contracting days, regarded her with a mixture of surprise and cautious respect. By lunch, Maria had already identified 3 major inefficiencies in their cleaning protocols and developed a plan to reduce cross-contamination risks in the pediatric ward. "Mama!" Sarah's voice rang through the corridor after school, her excitement momentarily masking her wheeze. "This is your office? It's so pretty." Maria watched her daughter explore the small space, touching everything with wonder. Sarah paused, at the window, pressing her hand against the glass as she looked down at the playground. "Can I go see the other kids sometime?" Before Maria could answer, a knock at the door revealed Dr. Chen. "Actually," he said, smiling at Sarah, "I was hoping you might help us with something special." He knelt to Sarah's level, his normally commanding presence softening. "How would you feel about helping us test a new program? It involves a friend of yours." Sarah's eyes widened as Michael appeared in the doorway, Rex walking perfectly healed beside him. The German Shepherd's coat gleamed, his injury barely noticeable now. Michael had traded his worn clothes for neat khakis and a hospital's security badge. "Rex is going to be our first therapy dog," Dr. Chen explained, "but he needs someone to help him practice, someone good with animals, who understands what our young patients might be feeling." Sarah's face lit up, but she looked quickly at her mother, seeking permission. Maria felt tears prick her eyes at her daughter's joy, but something in Dr. Chen's expression caught her attention. There was calculation there, beneath the kindness. Later that afternoon, as Sarah walked the halls, with Rex and Michael bringing smiles to young patients' faces, Maria overheard 2 board members talking around a corner. "Chen's getting bolder," one said. "First this new hiring program, now therapy dogs. The liability alone—" "It won't last," the other replied. "Next week's budget review will settle things. The children's ward is just too expensive to maintain. Even his personal fortune can't keep it afloat forever." Maria's hand tightened on her new badge. Down the hall, she could hear Sarah's laugh mixing with those of other children as Rex performed tricks for them. A young boy with no hair was actually sitting up in his bed, reaching for the dog with wonder in his eyes. His mother was crying, saying it was the first time he'd smiled in weeks. Dr. Chen appeared beside Maria, following her gaze. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said softly. "This is why we fight." He handed her a thick folder. "These are the real budget numbers for the children's ward. Study them. Next week, we show the board that some things are worth more than money." As he walked away, Maria opened the folder and began to read. Her eyes widened at what she found. Behind the official spreadsheets lay evidence of something deeper, questionable allocations, inflated costs, and signs that someone wanted the children's ward to fail. Sarah's voice floated down the hallway again, stronger than Maria had heard. "In weeks." Looking up, she caught Michael's eye. The former veteran nodded slightly, and she knew he'd been placed strategically as well. Dr. Chen was playing a longer game than any of them had realized. Maria squared her shoulders and returned to the numbers. She'd spent years cleaning up other people's messes. This one would be no different, just bigger and with much more at stake. Dr. James Chen stood before the wall of photographs in his office, his reflection ghosting over the faces of former patients. His sister's picture held center place. Lisa, forever 12 years old, her smile defiant, even in her final days. Below, it sat a more recent addition, a snapshot of Sarah and Rex with a group of young patients, their faces bright with joy despite the IV poles and monitoring equipment surrounding them. "The numbers don't lie, James," Board Chairman Harrison's voice cut through his contemplation. The children's ward loses money every quarter. These new programs of yours, therapy dogs, art classes, extended visiting hours, they're just adding to the deficit. The numbers tell the story you want them to tell, Richard. Chen turned to face the chairman. But they don't show Tommy Watson's first steps after 6 months of chemotherapy, or Angela Rivera's improved lung function since the therapy dog program started. Anecdotes don't pay bills. Harrison dropped a thick report on Chen's desk. The board votes next week. Unless you can show significant improvement in the ward's financial performance, we're converting it to private surgical suites. More profitable, less liability. After Harrison left, Chen sank into his chair, his usual composure cracking. He pulled out an old letter, worn from frequent handling. Lisa's last words to him. Promise you'll help other kids, Jimmy. Promise they won't be alone like I was. A knock interrupted his thoughts. Maria stood in the doorway, holding a stack of files. Dr. Chen, I found something strange in the maintenance. Records? He gestured her in, noticing how differently she carried herself now, confidence replacing the wariness of just weeks ago. Show me. Maria spread the documents across his desk. Supply orders for the children's ward are being processed through 3 different departments. We're being charged triple overhead on basic items, and these maintenance calls? She pointed to a lengthy list. Half of them were never actually performed, but were being billed anyway. Chen's eyes narrowed as he examined the evidence. Someone's cooking the books to make the ward look worse than it is. There's more. Maria hesitated. Sarah's been talking to the other children. Some of their parents were told their insurance won't cover treatment here anymore. They're being pressured to transfer to private facilities. She paused. Facilities owned by board members. Before Chen could respond, Sarah's familiar wheeze announced her arrival. She stood in the doorway, Rex at her side, her face flushed with excitement despite her labored breathing. Dr. Chen, you have to come see. Katie drew a whole picture today. She hasn't drawn since her accident. Chen followed Sarah to the children's ward, Maria close behind. The walls, once sterile and white, now bore colorful artwork. Children who had been listless in their beds now gathered in the play area. Rex moving carefully among them, offering his gentle presence to those who needed it most. Katie, a 7-year-old burn victim who hadn't spoken since the fire that claimed. Her parents proudly held up her drawing. It showed Rex surrounded by smiling children with a figure in a white coat watching over them all. It's you, she whispered to Chen. You're our guardian angel. The words hit him like a physical blow. In the corner he noticed Michael, in his security uniform, watching the scene with knowing eyes. The veteran had proven invaluable, his military training perfect for spotting irregularities in hospital operations. Dr. Chen, Maria's voice was low. The board meeting is in 3 days. What do we do? Chen watched as Sarah helped Katie add more colors to her drawing, both girls laughing as Rex nosed at their crayons. In his mind, Lisa's face overlapped with theirs. We fight, he said simply, but we have to be smart about it. The board thinks in numbers, so we'll give them numbers they can't ignore. He turned to Maria. Get me everything, every inconsistency, every inflated cost, every patient transfer. Michael can help you access security footage, maintenance logs. They've been manipulating the system for years. It's time we exposed it. It could get ugly, Maria warned. It already is. Chen's jaw set, firmly. They're betting on our silence, counting on people being too afraid to speak up. But they forgot something important. What's that? Chen watched as Sarah took her inhaler out, sharing it with another asthmatic child who was having trouble. The simple act of compassion multiplied across the ward in countless small ways, created something powerful. They forgot that sometimes the smallest hearts are the strongest, and when people have something worth fighting for, they'll find the courage to stand. As if on cue, Rex padded over, pressing his warm body against Chen's leg. The dog's steady presence reminded him of another truth. Sometimes the best way to heal isn't through medicine alone, but through the connections we forge when we're at our most vulnerable. Maria nodded, understanding dawning in her eyes. We have 3 days to save these children's future. No, Chen corrected softly. We have 3 days to show the board that these children are the future. He pulled out his phone, dialing quickly. Nancy, call every parent whose child was transferred in the last year. Tell them we're having a special board meeting. It's time they heard the real story of St. Michael's Children's Ward. The late evening sun cast long shadows through the children's ward as Maria sorted through another stack of financial records. Her eyes burned from hours of scanning spreadsheets, but each document revealed more of the truth. Patient transfers. That shouldn't have happened. Equipment purchases that never arrived. A pattern so clear it made her hands shake with anger. A sudden commotion broke her concentration. Sarah's familiar cough echoed down the hallway, but this time it sounded different, deeper, more desperate. Maria's maternal instincts sent her. Running before her mind could even process the sound. She found Sarah doubled over in the play area. Her inhaler clutched uselessly in her trembling hand. Empty, Sarah wheezed, panic in her eyes. Rex circled anxiously, whining as he nudged her hand. Here! Michael appeared from nowhere, another inhaler in his hand. From the emergency cache Dr. Chen set up. The medication helped, but Sarah's breathing remained labored. Dr. Chen, summoned by Michael's quiet call, arrived within minutes. His face darkened as he listened to Sarah's lungs. The humidity's been too high in this wing, he said, checking the environmental controls. The system's been malfunctioning for days, but maintenance keeps marking it as fixed. He met Maria's eyes. Just like those other fixed problems we found. Maria held Sarah close, feeling her daughter's heart racing. They're not just cooking books anymore, are they? They're actively making things worse, making the ward look inefficient, unsafe. Chen's voice was tight with controlled anger. Forcing our hand. He turned to Michael. Get me the maintenance logs, all of them. Later that night, after Sarah had been stabilized and settled into a monitoring bed, Maria found herself in Dr. Chen's office. Michael stood by the door, his military bearing more pronounced than usual. I did some digging, Michael said, placing a thick folder on Chen's desk. Those private facilities the board members own, they're charging triple what we do with half the success rate. But insurance? Companies are being pressured to direct patients there instead of here. Money, Maria spat the word like a curse. All of this because of money? Power, Chen corrected, staring at his sister's photograph. Money is just how they keep score. He opened his laptop, showing them a series of emails. Harrison and his allies don't just want to close our children's ward, they want to close all of them, create a network of private facilities they can control. But the families who can't afford private care? Maria's voice cracked, thinking, of Sarah? Aren't their problem? Chen's tone was bitter, just like Lisa wasn't their problem 20 years ago. Sarah's voice drifted through the open door, talking softly to Rex as nurses checked her vitals. Despite everything, she was trying to cheer up her fellow patients, sharing stories about the dog's adventures. I won't let them do this, Maria declared, her voice finding new strength. We have proof now. We can fight them. It's not that simple, Michael warned. People like this, they have connections. They can make things difficult. More difficult than watching your child struggle to breathe, Maria challenged. More difficult than telling parents their children can't get care because they're not profitable enough? Chen stood, decision crystallizing in his eyes. Michael, get me everything you have on the maintenance fraud. Maria, those transfer records? I want every parent contacted. Tomorrow, we start building our case. The board meeting's in 2 days, Maria reminded him. Then we have 2 days to make sure every parent, every doctor, every nurse knows what's really happening here. Chen's phone buzzed. Another text from Harrison demanding budget cuts. He ignored it. They'll try to stop us, Michael said quietly. Let them try. Maria thought of Sarah's empty inhaler, of Katie's burns, of every child in the ward fighting battles too big for their small bodies. Some things are worth fighting for. As if in answer, Rex's gentle bark echoed down the hall, followed by the sound of children laughing. Even in the midst of crisis, healing was happening. Love was winning, one small moment at a time. Chen picked up his sister's photograph, touching it gently. Lisa used to say that angels don't always have wings. Sometimes they have paws or tired eyes or cleaning carts. He looked at Maria and Michael. Sometimes they're just people brave enough to stand up and say, enough. Through the window they could see the lights of the city spreading out below them. Somewhere out there, board members were plotting in comfortable offices, moving numbers around spreadsheets, deciding the fates of children they'd never meet. But here in the children's ward, a different kind of power was growing. The power of truth, of compassion, of people coming together to protect something precious. The next 2 days would determine not just the fate of St. Michael's Children's Ward, but the future of health care for thousands of families. Maria squared her shoulders, ready for the fight ahead. After all, she'd been fighting for Sarah's breath since the day she was born. This was just a bigger version of the same battle, and this time she wasn't fighting alone. The morning air felt thick with tension as Maria marched through the hospital corridors, clutching a manila envelope filled with damning evidence. Her new office, once a symbol of hope, now felt like a command center for an approaching war. The board meeting was 24 hours away, and she'd just discovered something that changed everything. She found Dr. Chen in the children's ward, checking on Katie's burns. The little girl was showing him her latest drawing, a complex scene of Rex leading a parade of children toward a rainbow. The sight almost made Maria hesitate. Almost. Dr. Chen, her voice was steel wrapped in silk. We need to talk, now. He must have read something in her expression because he immediately excused himself, following her to a quiet corner. What's wrong? Maria pulled out a document from her envelope. You knew about Harrison's plans months ago. The private facilities, the maintenance fraud, all of it. You weren't just fighting the board. You were setting up an elaborate trap. Chen's face remained carefully neutral. Maria, my daughter is part of your trap? The words tasted like ash in her mouth. Sarah's getting worse. The humidity, the broken systems. You let it happen to build your case. Before Chen could respond, a code blue alarm blared through the speakers. Maria's heart stopped as she recognized the room number. Sarah's. They ran together, all accusations forgotten. Sarah lay in her bed, lips tinged blue, her breath coming in desperate gasps. Rex, who'd been keeping her company, barked frantically as medical staff swarmed the room. Severe bronchospasm, Dr. Williams announced, already administering emergency medication. The humidity damage to her lungs. Get her to ICU, Chen ordered, his doctor's instincts taking over. Full respiratory support. Now, Maria watched, helplessly, as they rushed Sarah away, her small hand still clutched around her latest drawing, a picture of their family, including Rex and Dr. Chen, standing in front of the hospital. Hours later, after Sarah had been stabilized, Maria found Chen in his office. He stood by the window, looking older than she'd ever seen him. You're right, he said before she could speak. I knew about Harrison's plans. I've been gathering evidence for months, building a case strong enough to not just stop them here, but expose their entire network. Why didn't you tell me? Because I needed genuine reactions, honest outrage, real stories. He turned to face her. But I never, his voice cracked, never meant for Sarah or any child to be hurt. The maintenance issues were supposed to be documented, not actually implemented. Someone on the board must have realized what I was doing and decided to force our hand. Maria sank into a chair, exhaustion finally catching up with her. What do we do now? Now, Chen's eyes hardened. Now we end this. Harrison and his allies didn't just endanger our patients. They committed fraud, endangered lives, violated federal regulations. He pulled out his phone, showing her an email. Michael found their internal communications. They're not just closing children's wards, they're creating a health care desert to force families into their private facilities. A soft knock interrupted them. Michael stood in the doorway, Rex at his heel. Sarah's asking for you both, he said quietly. And you need to see something. They followed him to the ICU, where Sarah lay surrounded by monitoring equipment. But she wasn't alone. Every child from the ward who could walk had gathered in the hallway outside her room. Katie stood at the front, holding up a new drawing, Osteos, massive mural created by all the children, showing their hospital standing strong against a dark storm. "We heard the bad people want to close our home," Katie said, her voice small but determined. "So we made this, to fight back." Other parents had gathered too, phones recording the moment. Maria saw tears in Chen's eyes as he knelt beside Katie. "The board thinks in numbers," he said softly. But they forgot about the most important equation of all, the value of a child's life multiplied by hope, divided by fear and love. Sarah's weak voice carried from her bed. "You forgot about love, Dr. Chen." Maria watched as her daughter reached for Rex, who had somehow slipped into the room. The dog gently laid his head on her bed, his presence already helping her breathing ease. "Tomorrow," Chen stood, addressing the gathered parents and staff. "Tomorrow we show the board that some things can't be measured in dollars. That healing isn't just about medicine, it's about community, about fighting for what's right." Looking at Sarah's pale face, at Katie's burns, at every child fighting battles too big for their years, Maria felt a new resolve harden in her heart. They had one chance to save not just the ward, but the very soul of healthcare itself. "Tomorrow?" she agreed, taking Chen's offered hand. "But tonight, we prepare for war." The night before the board meeting stretched endless and tense in St. Michael's Hospital. Maria sat surrounded by stacks of documents in the children's ward's play area, her laptop casting a blue glow over scattered papers. Michael stood at the window, his security uniform crisp despite the late hour, while Rex patrolled between the children's rooms like a furry guardian angel. "Got it?" Michael's quiet voice broke the silence. He handed Maria a thumb drive. "Security. Footage from the maintenance room. Shows Harrison's people tampering with the environmental controls." Maria plugged it into her laptop, watching grainy footage of men in suits directing maintenance staff to adjust critical systems. Her hands clenched as she remembered Sarah's blue lips, the desperate gasps for air. "There's more," Michael continued, laying out maintenance logs. "They didn't just tamper with our systems. They've been doing this at children's wards across 3 states. Create problems, document failures, force transfers to their private facilities. And the families who can't afford private care? Left with nothing." Michael's voice carried the weight of someone who'd seen too much injustice. "Just like I was. After my military insurance ran out." A small sound made them both turn. Katie stood in her doorway, bandages gleaming in the dim light. "I couldn't sleep," she whispered. "The bad dreams." Rex immediately patted over, pressing his warm body against her legs. The girl's shoulders relaxed slightly as she stroked his fur. "Your parents," Maria began gently, "before the fire. They were trying to expose something too, weren't they?" Katie nodded, tears sliding down her scarred cheeks. "Daddy was a reporter. He was writing about bad hospitals. Then the fire happened. Police said it was an accident, but..." Maria and Michael exchanged sharp looks. Chen appeared in the doorway. His tie loosened, looking like he hadn't slept in days. "I've been making calls," he said quietly, guiding Katie to sit with Rex. Katie's father was investigating Harrison's healthcare network. The fire happened 2 days before his story was supposed to run. "Jesus," Michael breathed. "How deep does this go?" Before anyone could answer, Sarah's nurse burst in. "You need to see this," she said, handing Chen her phone. "It's going viral." On the screen, a shaky video showed children in the ward's hallway, holding up their mural. But it wasn't just their artwork anymore. Parents had added their stories in the comments. More videos appeared, children in other hospitals holding similar signs. The hashtag #SaveOurChildren'sWards was trending. Harrison's already trying to. "Shut it down," the nurse continued, "but people are sharing faster than they can suppress." "Good," Chen's voice was steel. "Let them try to silence thousands of voices." Maria's phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number. Her heart stopped as she opened it. Security footage from the night of Katie's house fire, showing men in suits leaving just before the flames began. "They'll kill this story," Michael warned, "just like they did before." "No." Maria stood, determination hardening her spine. "Not this time. Because this time, we have something they don't." "What's that?" Katie asked, small fingers curled in Rex's fur. "We have truth," Maria said, "and we have each other." Through the night, more evidence poured in. Nurses shared records of patient transfers. Former employees broke their silence. Parents organized protests outside Harrison's private facilities. The story grew beyond anyone's ability to contain it. Sarah woke briefly in the ICU, her breathing stronger. "Did you see?" she whispered to her mother. "All the children were fighting back." Dawn broke over St. Michael's, painting the children's ward in gold. Maria watched as Chen prepared for the board meeting, his sister's photograph in his assistant's breast pocket. "Whatever happens today," he said, "remember, they thought they could break us by making us fight alone. Instead, they taught us how to fight together." Michael adjusted his uniform, Rex alert at his side. "Security cameras are ready. Every board member will have to walk past our evidence, displayed right in the lobby." "And the press?" Maria asked. "Anonymous. Tips sent to every major network." Chen's smile was grim. "Harrison wanted publicity for his private facilities. He's about to get more than he bargained for." Katie appeared, holding a new drawing. It showed a simple scene: children holding hands around their hospital, protected by a circle of light. "For luck," she said, handing it to Chen. Maria looked at her daughter's empty bed in the ICU, at Katie's healing scars, at Rex's watchful eyes. Then she looked at the growing crowd of parents and staff gathering in the lobby, arms linked, voices rising. The war for St. Michael's Children's Ward was about to begin. And this time, they weren't just fighting for a building. They were fighting for every child who would ever need its shelter, its hope, its healing. "Ready?" Chen asked, straightening his tie one final time. Maria thought of Sarah's first asthma attack, of endless nights working multiple jobs, of every parent facing the same desperate choices. "Ready," she answered, and meant it with every fiber of her being. Together they walked toward the boardroom, an army of hope behind them, ready to prove that some things were worth more than money, and some fights were worth every sacrifice. The morning news vans arrived like circling hawks, their satellite dishes reaching toward the sky as reporters gathered outside St. Michael's Hospital. Inside, the lobby had transformed into a war room. Screens displayed the trending Save Our Children's wards hashtag, while parents clutched signs bearing their children's stories. The air crackled with purpose and possibility. "Dr. Chen," a reporter's voice cut through the crowd. "Is it true the board is forcing you to resign?" Chen straightened his tie, years of medical training evident in his steady hands. "I serve the patients of this hospital, not its board. Today's meeting will determine more than my position. It will determine whether healthcare in this city serves profit or people." Maria watched from nearby, coordinating with parents via her tablet. The children's artwork covered the lobby walls, each piece telling a story of hope, healing, and resistance. Sarah's latest drawing held center place, a simple sketch of hands joined in a circle protecting a heart. "Mrs. Martinez?" A nurse hurried over. "Channel 7 wants to interview you about the environmental control tampering, and the parents from Metro Children's Hospital are here. Their ward was closed last month." Before Maria could respond, Harrison's voice boomed across the lobby. "This circus ends now." The board chairman strode through the doors, flanked by security guards, not Michael's people, but private contractors. "Dr. Chen, this publicity stunt violates multiple hospital policies. The board meeting is canceled until order is restored." "Actually," Chen's voice carried clearly, "it's not." He held up his phone, displaying an email. "Emergency board protocol. When patient safety is at risk, any member can call for an immediate session. The meeting starts in 10 minutes, and it will be public." Harrison's face purpled. "You can't." "He can." Michael stepped forward, Rex at his heel. "And according to hospital bylaws, all stakeholders have the right to attend. That includes parents, staff, and," he gestured to the news crews, "the press." The crowd parted as Sarah was wheeled in from the ICU, her breathing stronger but still careful. Katie walked beside her, carrying a stack of papers, printed copies of her father's unfinished investigation. "You think this changes anything?" Harrison snarled, but his eyes betrayed uncertainty as he saw the growing crowd. The numbers don't lie. The children's ward is unsustainable. No. Maria stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. Your numbers lie. We have proof of systematic fraud, endangerment of patients, and something far worse. She met his gaze steadily. We know about the fire, Mr. Harrison. The one that silenced Katie's father. The color drained from Harrison's face. Behind him, several board members shifted uncomfortably. In 10 minutes, Chen announced, we present our evidence, all of it, to the board, to the press, to everyone. But first, he turned to the children gathered in the lobby. These brave young patients have something to share. Katie stepped forward, her scars catching the morning light. One by one, children began to tell their stories. A boy who learned to walk again in the therapy pool they wanted to close. A girl whose cancer went into remission after joining the art therapy program. Sarah, her voice soft but determined, describing how Rex helped her breathe easier during anxiety attacks. This is your legacy, Mr. Harrison, Chen said quietly. Not the profits you've chased, but the lives you've tried to reduce to numbers on a spreadsheet. Harrison's phone buzzed insistently. His face darkened as he read the screen. You've been busy, Chen. My private facilities are being swamped with press inquiries, share prices dropping, board members getting calls from regulators. The truth has a way of spreading, Maria replied, thinking of all the nights they'd worked to build. Their case, like hope, like healing. The elevator dinged, and more people poured into the lobby. Doctors and nurses from other hospitals, former patients, even some of Harrison's own staff, carrying boxes of documents. Ready to start the meeting? Chen asked, his sister's photograph visible in his breast pocket. Or should we take this evidence directly to the state medical board? Harrison looked around the lobby, at the sea of faces united against him, at the cameras recording every moment. For the first time, he looked afraid. Sarah's voice carried from her wheelchair, clear and strong despite her recovering lungs. Mom always says that sometimes angels don't have wings. They have hearts brave enough to fight for what's right. The boardroom doors stood open, waiting. In 10 minutes, everything would change. The question was no longer whether the children's ward would survive, but how many other wrongs they would right in saving it. Chen offered his arm to Maria. Together they led the way forward, their army of hope behind them, ready to prove that the true measure of a hospital's success wasn't its profit margin. It was the lives it transformed, the hope it preserved, and the healing it made possible for all. The boardroom's heavy doors couldn't contain the energy spilling through St. Michael's Hospital. As Chen and Maria prepared their presentation, the lobby continued to fill. Local business owners arrived with donations and pledges of support. Veterans in uniform stood with Michael, their presence a silent testimony to the power of community. Dr. Chen, a woman, pushed through the crowd, her pharmacist's coat marking her as one of the downtown drugstore owners. Every independent pharmacy in the city is behind you. We've all seen what happens when Harrison's private facilities control patient care. The price gouging, the restricted access, it ends today. More allies emerged. The owner of Joe's Discount. Furniture, where Maria and Sarah lived, arrived with dozens of small business owners from their neighborhood. We're matching Dr. Chen's funding pledge, he announced, dollar for dollar. This ward isn't just part of a hospital, it's part of our community. Inside the boardroom, Harrison watched the growing crowd through narrowed eyes. Touching. He sneered, but sentiment doesn't pay bills, Chen. Your little parade of supporters can't match our investors. No? Chen opened his laptop, displaying a spreadsheet. Every business you see out there has pledge support, not just money, services, supplies, volunteer hours. The real numbers, Harrison, not your manipulated ones. Maria stepped forward, her tablet displaying years of fraudulent maintenance records. We've calculated the actual operating costs of the children's ward without your artificial inflation. It's not just sustainable, it's a model for community-based health care. This isn't just about St. Michael's anymore, Michael added, Rex alert at his side. His fellow veterans nodded grimly. We've contacted children's wards in every hospital your network has targeted. They're all coming forward, all sharing evidence. A commotion at the door drew everyone's attention. Katie entered, leading a group of children from the ward. Each carried a piece of the story: artwork, medical charts showing their progress, letters from their families. But it was the tall man behind them that made Harrison's face go pale. "Hello, Richard," the man said quietly. "Remember me, lead investigator for the State Medical Board. Katie's father was helping us build a case against your network before the fire. His daughter just shared some very interesting security footage with us." Harrison stood, his chair scraping back. "This is absurd. I don't have to—" "Sit down." Chen's voice cut through the room like a surgeon's blade. He pulled out his sister's photograph, placing it on the boardroom table. "Before we hear from the medical board, before we review the evidence, I want to tell you a story about a little girl named Lisa and the hospital board that decided her life wasn't profitable enough to save." The room fell silent as Chen spoke, his voice carrying the weight of 20 years of grief and purpose. He described Lisa's battle with a rare illness, the experimental treatment that could have saved her, and the board that rejected it as financially unsound. "I promised her I would never let it happen again." Chen's eyes met Harrison's. "That's why I became a doctor, why I earned my fortune, why I bought enough shares in this hospital to call this meeting. Lisa died because people like you decided her life had a price tag. Well, today we're changing the equation." Maria touched Chen's arm gently, then addressed the board. "Look outside. Every person there represents thousands more. Parents, patients, community members, all united." Mr. Harrison thought he could break us by making us fight alone. Instead, he taught us how to fight together. The state investigator stepped forward, holding up a flash drive. "We have evidence of systematic fraud across your entire healthcare network, Mr. Harrison. Patient endangerment, insurance manipulation, and yes, criminal conspiracy related to the fire that killed Katie's parents." Harrison's phone buzzed again, stock prices plummeting as the story spread. Board members began to shift away from him, sensing the changing tide. Outside, Sarah's voice carried through the open doors, leading the children in a song they'd learned during music therapy. The sound filled the hospital, a reminder of everything at stake. "The vote," Chen announced, "will proceed as scheduled, but first, these children and their families will share their stories, and you will listen, because today, we're not just saving a ward, we're redefining what healthcare means in this community." Katie walked to Harrison, holding out her father's last notebook. "He always said the truth finds its way into the light," she said softly, "like flowers growing through cracks in concrete. You can't stop it forever." The morning sun streamed through the windows, illuminating Lisa's photograph. In its light, Chen saw not just his sister's face, but the faces of all the children they were fighting for, past, present, and future. The revolution in healthcare they'd dreamed of wasn't just possible anymore. It was happening, one voice, one pledge, one community at a time. And not even Harrison's empire could stand against the power of that many hearts beating as one. The children's art show had transformed the hospital's main corridor into a gallery of hope and defiance. Paintings, drawings, and collages lined the walls, each piece telling a story of healing and resilience. Sarah stood before her contribution, a massive mural created with other patients, showing their hospital surrounded by a rainbow of protecting hands. "Can you tell us about your artwork?" a reporter asked, cameras rolling as the story continued. To gather national attention. Sarah opened her mouth to respond, but something was wrong. The familiar tightness gripped her chest. "Worse than before. Mom," she whispered, reaching for her inhaler, but the medication didn't help. The humidity in the corridor had spiked again. Someone had tampered with the environmental controls one final time. "Code Blue, main corridor!" Maria's voice cut through the crowd. Dr. Chen rushed forward as Sarah's legs gave out, her lips turning blue. Rex barked frantically, alerting Michael, who was already calling for emergency equipment. "Get her to the ICU," Chen ordered, his doctor's instincts taking over, "and someone find out who accessed the maintenance room in the last hour." As they rushed Sarah away, Harrison emerged from a side hallway, his smile barely concealing his triumph. "Unfortunate timing," he said smoothly. "Perhaps this demonstrates why the children's ward is too dangerous to remain open. The liability alone." He never finished. Katie stepped forward, her phone held high. "I saw them," she said, her voice shaking but determined. "Your men in the maintenance room, I recorded everything." She pressed play, and Harrison's face went ashen as his own voice filled the corridor, ordering the sabotage. The crowd's reaction was immediate and fierce. Parents surged forward, phones recording, as Harrison backed away. Outside, the protest that had been building all morning reached a crescendo as news of Sarah's attack spread. In the ICU, Maria held Sarah's hand as doctors worked to stabilize her. "Stay with me, mi amor," she whispered. "We're so close. We've come so far." Chen appeared. In the doorway, his face a storm of controlled fury. Harrison's men confessed they're cooperating with the state investigation. He moved to check Sarah's vitals himself. "But we need to end this now, before anyone else gets hurt." Through the window, they could see the crowd outside growing. Local news cameras captured everything as business owners closed their shops to join the protest. Veterans in uniform formed a protective line around the hospital entrance. Michael's security team had quietly locked down every maintenance access point. "Dr. Chen!" Nancy burst in. "The board, they're calling for an immediate vote. Harrison's trying to push it through while Sarah's crisis distracts everyone." Chen looked at Maria, a silent question in his eyes. She straightened, drawing on reserves of strength she didn't know she had. "Go, I'll stay with Sarah. End this." As Chen hurried toward the boardroom, Katie appeared with an armful of artwork. Wordlessly, she began taping pieces to Sarah's ICU window, not just her own drawings, but contributions from every child in the ward. A wall of hope built piece by piece, surrounding Sarah with the strength of their combined spirit. Rex whined softly, pressing against Maria's leg. Through her tears, she saw Sarah's oxygen levels beginning to stabilize. Her daughter was fighting, just like they all were. In the boardroom, Chen faced Harrison and his remaining allies. "Before you vote," he announced, "there's something you need to see." He nodded to Michael, who opened the doors. The scene outside the boardroom had transformed. Hospital staff lined the corridors, standing silent and determined. Parents held up their children's medical records, proof of lives saved, battles won, miracles worked by the very programs Harrison wanted to cut. And through the windows, the crowd outside had grown so large, it stretched around the block. "This is your legacy," Chen said quietly, placing Lisa's photograph on the table. "Not the profits you've chased, but the lives you've tried to reduce to numbers." Sarah Martinez isn't just having an asthma attack up there. She's fighting against a system that values money over healing, profit over people. Harrison's phone buzzed again. More investors pulling out as the scandal grew. Board members whispered among themselves, sensing the changing tide of history. "The vote," Chen continued, his voice carrying the weight of 20 years of promise, "isn't just about one ward or one hospital. It's about who we are as healers, as humans. It's about—" A commotion at the door interrupted him. Sarah stood there, supported by Maria and Katie, Rex at her side. Her breathing was still labored, but her eyes blazed with purpose. "It's about love," she said softly, her voice carrying in the hushed room. "That's the only number that matters." The boardroom fell silent as Sarah walked slowly to the table, placing her inhaler next to Lisa's photograph, two symbols of the same fight, separated by 20 years, but united in purpose. The moment of truth had arrived. And in that moment, watching his sister's photograph next to Sarah's inhaler, Chen knew that some victories weren't counted in dollars or votes, but in the beats of a determined heart. The boardroom crackled with tension as members took their seats for the final vote. Outside, thousands watched on hastily erected screens in the parking lot, the crowd stretching past the hospital grounds. Sarah's latest artwork, photographed and shared just hours ago, had exploded across social media. A simple yet powerful drawing of hands breaking free from chains made of dollar signs, reaching toward a heart-shaped hospital. Harrison stood at the head of the table, his authority crumbling, but his desperation making him dangerous. Before we vote, I remind the board that Dr. Chen's emotional manipulation doesn't change the financial reality. His private fortune can't sustain. Actually, Chen interrupted, sliding a document across the table. It can. I'm pledging my entire fortune to create a foundation for children's health care, not just for St. Michael's, but for every hospital. Your network has threatened. The boardroom erupted in whispers. Maria stepped forward, her tablet displaying a cascade of financial commitments. And he's not alone. Every business owner you see outside, every community member, they've pledged support. Monthly donations, service commitments, volunteer hours. The real numbers, Mr. Harrison, not your manipulated ones. Michael appeared at the door, Rex alert beside him. You'll want to see this. He turned on the boardroom's screen, displaying live news coverage. FBI agents were entering Harrison's private facilities across the state. The caption read, "Healthcare fraud investigation expands. Multiple arrests made." Harrison's phone buzzed frantically. His face went ash white as he read the messages. Board members began to distance themselves. Years of complicity giving. Way to self-preservation. You don't understand, Harrison's voice cracked. The system doesn't work without profit. Someone has to make the hard choices, like choosing which children deserve to live. Sarah's voice carried from the doorway. She stood straighter now, her breathing stronger, Katie at her side. My mom taught me that the hardest choice is standing up for what's right, even when everyone tells you it's impossible. The young girl moved to the center of the room, unfolding a large piece of paper. It was a new drawing, created during her recovery. The hospital transformed into a tree, its roots made of joined hands, its branches reaching toward a sky where Lisa's spirit watched over them all. Sarah Martinez's artwork has gone viral, the news anchor's voice carried from the screen. The hashtag #ToRunnerHandsOfHope is trending worldwide, with children's hospitals across the country joining the movement. Chen stood, his sister's photograph still beside him. The vote before us isn't just about numbers, it's about legacy. What do we want St. Michael's to be? A profit center or a beacon of hope? Maria touched Sarah's shoulder gently. "Show them," she whispered. Sarah pulled out her phone, opening her social media. Thousands of children had recreated her drawing, each adding their own story. Parents shared medical bills from Harrison's facilities next to stories of salvation at places like St. Michael's. The movement had become unstoppable. I move, a board member spoke suddenly, to not only keep the children's ward open, but to expand it and to launch a full investigation into Mr. Harrison's activities. Second, another voice called, then another. Harrison lunged for the documents on the table, but Michael was faster. Rex positioned himself between Harrison and the exit as security officers entered. "Richard Harrison," the lead FBI agent announced, "you're under arrest for healthcare fraud, patient endangerment, and conspiracy related to the death of James Walker, Katie's father." As Harrison was led away, Chen turned to the board. The vote? One by one, hands raised. The decision was unanimous. St. Michael's Children's Ward would not only survive, but become a model for community-based healthcare across the country. Outside, the crowd erupted in cheers. Sarah's artwork appeared on every screen, a symbol of triumph over greed, of hope, over despair. Katie hugged her tightly, their tears mixing with laughter. "Dr. Chen," Sarah called softly, "can we show you something?" The children led the way to the ward, where every surface had been covered with artwork. But one piece stood out, a recreation of Lisa's photograph, surrounded by drawings from every child she'd inspired her brother to save. "She's not gone," Sarah said, taking Chen's hand. "She's in every life you've saved, every child you've helped. She's why we won today." Chen touched the artwork gently, 20 years of grief and purpose coming full circle. "No," he corrected softly. "We won because you reminded us what we were fighting for. Sometimes it takes a child to show adults the way back to their hearts. As the sun set over St. Michael's, the hospital glowed with new purpose. Harrison's empire was falling, but something stronger was rising in its place. A community united, a future secured, and a promise kept to a little girl who'd dreamed of. A world where every child had a chance to heal. The days following Harrison's arrest brought a whirlwind of changes to St. Michael's Hospital. Television crews camped outside captured the endless stream of officials, investigators, and community leaders entering and leaving. But in the children's ward, a different kind of transformation was taking place. Sarah sat in the hospital garden, her breathing clear and strong for the first time in months. The new medication, finally accessible through the hospital's revised care program, had worked wonders. Rex lay at her feet while she sketched, her artwork now famous beyond anything she could have imagined. "Your latest piece just got shared by the governor," Katie said, settling beside her friend with her own sketchbook. Her burns were healing well, the new treatment protocols Chen had implemented showing remarkable results. They're using it to promote the Healthcare Accessibility Act. Inside his office, Chen sorted through the aftermath of their victory. The cost had been enormous, nearly his entire fortune pledged to the new Children's Healthcare Foundation. His resignation as CEO would take effect at month's end, a necessary sacrifice to ensure the board's complete restructuring. "You don't have to do this," Maria said from the doorway, watching him pack his personal items. "The board would keep you on. After everything you've done, that's exactly why I need to step down," Chen replied, carefully wrapping Lisa's photograph. "This can't be about one person's vision anymore. It has to be about community, about all of us working together." A commotion outside drew their attention. Michael was leading a group of veterans through the lobby, each carrying boxes of supplies donated by local businesses. The community's support hadn't wavered. If anything, it had grown stronger since their victory. "Dr. Chen," Sarah's voice carried from the garden. "Come quick. You need to see this." They hurried outside to find Sarah and Katie surrounded by other children from the ward, all pointing excitedly at their phones. The Frederick Hands of Hope movement had evolved into something bigger. Hospitals across the country were adopting their community-based healthcare model. Sarah's artwork had become a symbol of a national revolution. "But that's not the best part," Sarah beamed, showing them her tablet. "Look what we did." The children had created a virtual memorial wall dedicated to both Lisa and Katie's father. Stories poured in from families affected by Harrison's network, each one adding their own testimony, their own artwork, their own pledge to continue the fight for accessible health care. "We're not just saving our hospital anymore," Katie explained, her voice strong with purpose. "We're saving all of them." Chen sat heavily on a garden bench, overwhelmed by the scope of what they'd started. A small hand slipped into his. "Sarah," offering silent support just as his sister once had. "Your resignation letter," Maria said quietly, holding up the envelope. "I don't think you should submit it." Maria, "Listen," she interrupted, her voice firm. "You wanted to step down to prove this isn't about one person's power, but look around. It never was." She gestured to the scene before them. Michael and his veterans organizing donations, nurses implementing new care protocols, parents working with social workers to navigate the reformed insurance systems, Katie teaching younger patients to draw, her own healing evident in every gentle instruction. "You're not the CEO who rules from above anymore," Maria continued. "You're part of something bigger, something Lisa would be proud of." As if in response, a gentle breeze stirred the garden, carrying the sound of children's laughter from the ward above. Rex lifted his head, his tail wagging as more families arrived with donations, artwork, and offers to help. "There's so much more to do," Chen said softly, looking at his sister's photograph. "Harrison's network spread far. The damage they caused, then we keep fighting," Sarah declared, her sketch taking shape. A new vision of St. Michael's, not as a fortress of healing, but as a heart beating in rhythm with its community. Together, the sun set over the hospital garden, painting the scene in warm gold. Chen looked at his resignation letter, then at the faces around him, Maria's wisdom, Sarah's courage, Katie's resilience, Michael's strength. In the distance, news crews captured the arrival of more supporters, more allies in their ongoing battle for health care justice. Together, he agreed, tearing the letter in half. The pieces scattered in the breeze like seeds, carrying the promise of new growth, new hope, new possibilities. Above them, the hospital windows reflected the dying light, each one holding a story of healing, of victory against impossible odds. Harrison's arrest had ended one chapter, but the real story, the story of a community united, of hearts opened, of healing transformed, was just beginning. Sarah added the final touches to her drawing, a simple pair of hands not reaching up in supplication, but stretched out in welcome. The true power of healing, she'd learned, lay not in walls or wealth, but in the connections we forge when we're brave enough to care. 3 months after Harrison's arrest, St. Michael's Hospital hummed with renewed purpose. Maria walked the corridors of the children's ward, her new title of patient care coordinator feeling more natural with each passing day. The cleaning cart she'd once pushed had been replaced by a tablet loaded with patient care schedules, but her attention to detail remained the same. Only now she was monitoring healing instead of housekeeping. Mrs. Martinez, a nurse hurried toward her, excitement brightening her face. The results from the first quarter under the new program just came in. Patient recovery rates are up 30%, and our community engagement metrics are off the EU charts. Maria smiled, remembering the days when such statistics would have seemed like a foreign language. Now they told a story she understood intimately, a story of transformation that began with one little girl helping an injured dog. In the newly renovated therapy room, Sarah led a breathing exercise class for younger patients, Rex moving carefully between the children. Her own asthma had become manageable under the new treatment protocols, but she hadn't forgotten the struggle. Each week she worked with newly diagnosed children, showing them that their condition didn't define their possibilities. Or they'd say, "Foundation approved another round of funding," Chen announced, appearing in the doorway. Though no longer CEO, his new role as director of the Children's Health Foundation kept him deeply involved in the hospital's mission. His sister's photograph now hung in the ward's entrance, alongside Sarah's original artwork, twin symbols of the legacy they were building. Michael's security team just finished installing the new monitoring systems, he continued. No more mysterious maintenance issues. His smile carried a hint of satisfaction. The investigation into Harrison's network had uncovered similar schemes at hospitals across the country, leading to a wave of reforms. Katie, now a junior art therapist despite her young age, worked with a new patient in the corner. Her burns had faded to soft pink scars that she wore proudly, calling them her marks of survival. The young boy she was helping had similar scars, and his mother watched with tears as he picked up a crayon for the first time since his accident. "We're getting calls from hospitals in other states," Maria shared, checking her tablet. "They want to implement our community integration model. The governor's office is talking about making it a statewide standard." Chen nodded, watching Sarah demonstrate a breathing technique. "Lisa would have loved this," he said softly. "Not just the medical care, but the way we've made it human again." The afternoon sun streamed through new windows, donated by a local construction company, casting warm light over the scene. In the garden below, Michael conducted a training session for the expanded therapy dog program. Rex's success had inspired a partnership with local shelters, giving both animals and patients new chances at healing. "Mama," Sarah called out, her voice strong and clear. "Come see what we made." The children had created a wall of photographs showing their progress over the months. Each picture told a story: first steps after surgery, hair growing back after chemotherapy, smiles returning after trauma. But it wasn't just the medical victories they celebrated. It was the community that made them possible. Local business, owners delivering supplies, veterans offering support to struggling families, artists teaching classes, former patients returning to volunteer. The wall captured it all, a testament to what happens when profit gives way to purpose. "This is healthcare," Maria said, touching a photo of Sarah helping another child with an inhaler. Not just medicine and machines, but hearts and hands working together. Chen's phone buzzed, another hospital requesting guidance on implementing their model. The revolution they'd started showed no signs of slowing. Each week brought new allies, new opportunities, new chances to heal, not just bodies, but the healthcare system itself. As the day wound down, Maria stood in her small office, once Chen's, now transformed into a community coordination center. On her desk sat a framed copy of Sarah's viral drawing, The Hands of Hope Reaching Outward. Beside it, a new photograph showed their extended hospital family, staff, patients, volunteers, and supporters, all united in purpose. The cleaning cart she'd once pushed still stood in a corner, kept as a reminder. But now it held art supplies, therapy tools, and Rex's treats. Like St. Michael's itself, it had been transformed not by discarding its past, but by building upon it with wisdom, compassion, and unwavering hope for the future. 1 year to the day after Harrison's arrest, St. Michael's Hospital buzzed with celebration. The children's ward, now officially named the Lisa Chen Memorial Children's Center, had been transformed beyond recognition. Colorful murals brightened, every wall telling the story of their journey from crisis to triumph. The very spot where Sarah had once struggled to breathe now hosted an art therapy station where she worked with young patients learning to manage their own respiratory conditions. "Can you believe it's been a year?" Katie asked, adjusting a banner for the anniversary celebration. Her latest surgery had further reduced her scarring, but she wore her remaining marks like badges of honor, using her experience to counsel other burn victims. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday we were fighting to keep the ward open." "And sometimes," Sarah replied, helping Rex navigate between excited children, "it feels like we've been living in this new world forever." The German Shepherd, now officially Isia, the head of the hospital's expanded therapy dog program, carried himself with dignified pride as he made his rounds. The lobby filled with familiar faces, community members who'd stood with him during the darkest days. The owner of Joe's Discount Furniture chatted with local pharmacists about their ongoing support programs. Michael, in his crisp security chief uniform, coordinated with his team of veteran volunteers who now provided both protection and mentorship. Throughout the hospital, Mrs. Martinez, a young mother, rushed up to Maria, tears in her eyes. "My Tommy, he's going home today. The new treatment program you helped implement, we never thought." Maria hugged the woman, remembering her own desperate days of trying to afford Sarah's medication. Now, thanks to the Foundation's sliding scale program and community support network, no family faced that struggle alone. Chen moved through the crowd, no longer in his CEO suits, but wearing a comfortable doctor's coat. He'd returned to practicing medicine 3 days a week, working directly with patients while guiding the Foundation's expanding influence. The other hospitals that had adopted their model were showing similar success rates, creating a ripple effect of positive change across the healthcare system. "Dr. Chen," Sarah called out, waving him over to a special display. "We wanted to show you something before the main ceremony." The children had created a timeline of the past year, documented through their artwork. It began with Sarah's original drawing of hands breaking free from chains, continued through the viral Schwester Hands of Hope campaign, and ended with their latest project, a massive collaborative piece showing their hospital at the center of a web of healing that stretched across the country. "But that's not all," Katie added, leading them to a covered wall. With dramatic flair, she pulled away the sheet, revealing hundreds of photographs. Each showed a child who'd been helped by their new healthcare model, alongside stories from their families. "We call it the Wall of Light," Sarah explained, touching a picture of herself from a year ago, oxygen mask in place, determination in her eyes. "Because that's what you taught us, that even in the darkest times, hope finds a way to shine through." Chen stood silent, his hand resting on Lisa's photograph, now centerpiece of the display. Maria noticed tears in his eyes as he read the inscription beneath it. To the little girl who inspired her brother to change the world, one healing heart at a time. The afternoon celebration brought more surprises. The governor arrived to announce the statewide adoption of their community-based healthcare model. Representatives from children's hospitals across the country shared their own success stories of implementing St. Michael's approach. Local business owners pledged continued support, ensuring the program's sustainability. But the most powerful moment came when Sarah and Katie unveiled their latest initiative, a peer support program they'd developed, matching current patients with those who'd recovered. Because sometimes, Sarah explained to the gathered crowd, the best medicine is knowing you're not fighting alone. Rex barked softly in agreement, his tail wagging as he recognized many of his former patients in the audience. Some walked independently now, others still needed support, but all carried the strength that comes from being part of something larger than themselves. As the sun set over St. Michael's, casting long shadows through the new garden they'd built, where the parking lot once stood, Maria found herself back where it all began, the sidewalk where Sarah had first helped an injured dog. Now a plaque marked the spot. Here a child's compassion sparked a revolution in healing. "You know what I've learned?" Sarah said, joining her mother with Rex at her side. "Angels really don't need wings, they just need hearts brave enough to care and hands strong enough to help." Chen smiled, watching a new family enter the hospital, not with fear, but with hope. "And sometimes," he added softly, "they need someone to remind them what they are fighting for." The hospital glowed in the evening light, its windows reflecting the golden sky. Inside, healing continued, not just of bodies, but of the very system meant to care for them. They had transformed more than a ward. They had redefined what healthcare could be when compassion led the way. "Dear Dr. Chen, I've been trying to find the right words to thank you, but sometimes even an artist struggles to express what's in their heart. Mom says that's okay, that some feelings are too big for words. But I want to try anyway. Remember that day when Rex was hurt and you watched me help him? I didn't know then that angels could wear business suits, or that sometimes the biggest changes start with the smallest acts of kindness. You saw something in me that day, just like you saw something in every child who's come through these doors. Yesterday, I helped a little girl with asthma learn to use her inhaler. She was scared, just like I used to be. But then Rex put his head in her lap, and I showed her my old drawings of what it feels like to fight for breath. By the end, she was teaching her little brother how to be her breathing buddy. That's when I realized we're not just helping people heal their bodies, we're helping them find their strength. The therapy dog program has grown so much. Michael says Rex is the senior instructor now. You should see him with the new puppies in training. He's teaching them how to be gentle with the kids in the burn unit, just like he was with Katie. She says her dad would be proud of how we've turned loss into legacy. Mom told me about the scholarship fund you started in Lisa's name. I know you say it was the foundation's decision, but we all know whose idea it was. I promise to make you both proud when I start medical school in 10 years. Yes, I've decided I want to be a pediatrician who does art therapy. The other day, I heard someone call St. Michael's a miracle, but I don't think that's quite right. Miracles just happen. What we built here, we fought for it, we worked for it, we believed in it even when nobody else did. That's not a miracle. That's love in action. So thank you, Dr. Chen, not just for saving our hospital, but for showing us that sometimes the best medicine doesn't come in pills or injections. Sometimes it comes in the form of a helping hand, a wagging tail, or a heart brave enough to fight for what's right. P.S. Rex wants you to know he expects extra treats at tomorrow's board meeting. He says he's earned them, and honestly, who are we to argue with the head of canine therapy? With love and gratitude, Sarah Martinez, future Dr. Martinez, and Rex, paw print included. The letter sat on Chen's desk, Sarah's colorful artwork decorating. The margins, scenes of children playing in the hospital garden, Rex leading his team of therapy dogs, and hands joined in the symbol that had become their beacon of hope. Beside it lay the latest statistics: patient recovery rates continuing to climb, community involvement at record levels, and requests from hospitals worldwide wanting to implement their model. But it was the small detail at the bottom that brought tears to his eyes. A carefully drawn portrait of Lisa and Katie's father, watching over it all, their legacy living on in every life touched, every hand held, every heart healed. The morning sun painted St. Michael's Hospital in shades of gold, just as it had that fateful day when a little girl stopped to help an injured dog. But now, 5 years later, Sarah Martinez stood tall and healthy at the podium, addressing a crowd gathered for the opening of the hospital's newest wing, a state-of-the-art pediatric research center. People often ask me what I remember most about the day we saved our hospital, she began, her voice clear and strong. No trace of the wheeze that had once threatened her dreams. They expect me to talk about the protests, the viral artwork, or Harrison's arrest. But what I remember most is something my mom taught me, that angels don't need wings to change the world. They just need hearts brave enough to care. In the front row, Maria squeezed Chen's hand, both of them watching the confident young teenager who had sparked a healthcare revolution. Behind them sat Katie, now a full-time art therapist, her scars faded, but her spirit stronger than ever. Michael stood at attention nearby, Rex's son Max continuing his father's legacy at his side. Today, as we open this research center, Sarah continued, we're not just building on what we saved, we're building toward what we can become. Every child who walks through these doors will know they're not just a patient. They're part of a community that fights for them, believes in them, and heals with them. The new wing gleamed behind her, its walls already adorned with artwork from current and former patients. But the most prominent display remained the original, a simple drawing of hands breaking free from chains, reaching toward a heart-shaped hospital. Beside it hung Lisa's photograph and a memorial to Katie's father, their spirits living on in every life touched by their legacy. 5 years ago, we proved that healthcare isn't just about medicine, it's about humanity. It's about remembering that every number on a spreadsheet represents a beating heart, a fighting spirit, a precious life. Sarah's voice carried across the hushed crowd, and as I prepare for medical school next fall, I carry one truth with me. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can spark the biggest changes. As if on cue, Max barked softly, making the crowd laugh. Sarah smiled, reaching down to scratch his ears, a gesture so reminiscent of that first day with Rex that it brought tears to many eyes. So here's to the next chapter, she concluded, her gaze sweeping over the assembled faces, doctors, patients, community members, all part of the extended family they'd built. Here's to every hand held, every fear faced, every victory celebrated. Here's to remembering that true healing happens when we're brave enough to care, strong enough to stand together, and wise enough to let love lead the way. The applause that followed wasn't just for Sarah's words. It was for every person who had fought to transform a hospital into a sanctuary, a crisis into a revolution, and a moment of kindness into a lifetime of hope. And somewhere, watching over it all, an angel without wings smiled, knowing that her brother had kept his promise in ways greater than either of them could have imagined.